So I wasn't able to film a lot of the nesting box just because I didn't realize the battery went dead when I was building it. But it was pretty straightforward. A lot of the wood that I used for the nesting box was scrap. Some of it even came from the cutouts on the rest of the coop. You know, the bottom part was actually the piece that came out of here, so it fit in really nicely. But it's just some 3/4 ply. It's all glued together, and then, you know, drilled some pilot holes to make sure the screws didn't crack the wood. Glued it up, screwed it all together. It was one big piece, then I slid it in, and I think you might see me in the video screw it into the framing that's already in the coop. And then I'm gonna put the lid on now. So again, just some scrap leftover, and should work out pretty well. 2, 3. Put it down. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Right there. How we do? How we do? It's actually not bad. I want to come to me just a smidge.
Yeah.
1, 2. There you go.
Yeah, you're there, buddy.
Bro. Thank you so much, dude. All right, man, so that pretty much wraps up the chicken coop build. Super excited. Next is obviously getting some chickies up in here, but I really appreciate you guys watching. I made some notes while I was editing the video on things that, you know, maybe people have questions on. I thought maybe I could give some answers to that I didn't show on the video, or I didn't, you know, make note of in the video, just in case, you know, you've got questions. The foundation, I did use just normal 16 by 8 by 4 concrete block that you get from a home improvement store. I did use a little bit of sand. I don't know if I show me doing that, but you know, obviously once I tamped down the garden bed dirt, I did lay some sand down there. That way it would make it a little bit easier for me to sort of level off the concrete block. The coop is generally the same size as the garden. Again, when you see me tamping down the garden bed, I was attempting to kind of reutilize how I leveled out the garden bed to start with a somewhat level surface to put the block down. In theory, it should have worked, but it was a little bit more effort than I thought it was going to be to actually get the block level, but certainly well worth it and needed. The coop ended up being just over 10.5 by 5.5 feet wide, the coop and the run together, basically because I went to almost the outside of the concrete blocks. I Craig jigged as much stuff on the coop and the run as I could. Made it look nice, certainly made it a little bit easier to paint / stain, but most importantly, I wanted to be able to staple the hardware cloth right to the face of the whole area. I didn't want to have to add pieces of wood to give me a flat surface to, you know, staple the hardware cloth to. That was the main purpose. So it took a little extra effort to do Craig jig, you know, on all the pieces, but in the end it worked out really nice, and I think it turned out looking a lot better too. And let's be honest, it's all about what it looks like for the chickens, right? I pre-drilled everything. Some things I show me pre-drilling, but I pretty much pre-drilled everything. I didn't want to crack wood, especially using some of the thinner pieces or using the ply. I didn't have a lot of extra stuff. I was trying to use a lot of scraps, so everything got pre-drilled before it got screwed together. With the mention of the wood scraps, I pretty much used everything that I could find laying in my workshop. Every once in a while I head off to a restore, a Habitat for Humanity restore, and every once in a while, you know, construction companies will dump cut-offs for plywood, and I pick them up as often as I can. Most of the times they're like a half a sheet or like a 3 foot by 4 foot piece, but they're normally 50 cents. So anytime I can go in there and get like a cart's worth or something, I'll just load it up and bring home all that plywood, and it gets used for something, shelves or whatever, you know, the compost toilet up at the Shabin, and I used pretty much every scrap that I could. With that being said, I probably would have used 1/2 inch sheathing to do the whole entire coop, just to make it a little bit lighter, a little bit easier, and a little less expensive on the pieces I did have to buy. But since I was matching it up to 3/4 that I already had, I kind of used 3/4 all around, and it certainly made it a little more rugged and maybe will help insulate a little bit better during the colder months. As far as the rafters, I just wanted to mention, you'll see me in the video cutting the rafters. A little unique, using the table saw to cut the angle on the 2x10, or, you know, what, I forget if I used 2x8 or 2x10. But the reason that I did that was because I wanted the shed style roof so that I only had to put a gutter to do water collection on one side. But it was important for me to have a flat edge on the front side of the coop so that I could nail the sheathing, screw the sheathing right up the whole entire front of the coop. I didn't want to have to worry about roof rafters coming out or any of that kind of stuff. So when you see me cutting the rafters, there's a flat end on every side, and that's why I cut the rafters that way. I don't really get a chance to mention that, and if there's any questions on it, you can post it below. I'll answer anything you've got. I didn't really show me painting or staining this thing because that would just be completely boring, but I did use stain mostly because I had 4 or 5 different leftover Minwax stains from just years of building furniture and stuff. So I basically poured all of them into one bucket, mixed it all up, and stained it, and I lathered it on, which I normally wouldn't do if I was, you know, doing a nice furniture, you know, piece of furniture build. But I just slopped it on there, wiped off a little bit here and there, but I just let it dry over like a week's time period, and I didn't even care what it looked like. I just wanted it more for protection than anything. And again, it was sort of free because they were just a bunch of different different stains laying around for years, and now they all got used up, which was great. On the entire build, I used pretty much every nut, screw, and bolt that I had laying around. Most of what I put this together with were torque screws that were left over from the Shabin build that is up on our land on 18 acres up north, which I'll link videos to up here. You can go back and check them out, but some drywall screws that I left over here and there, but mostly some torque screws that we used originally on the Shabin build. As far as the coop itself, I made it so that it can be separated into two parts, which most people would do, the run and the coop. What I did was the roof panels were put on in a way that the middle one can come off, and then 4 bolts that are between the run and the coop can come out, and the coop and the run basically can get separated for me to transport. That way, once we take this chicken coop up north, we just separate it in two parts, pop it on a trailer, and just scoot it right up. The roost, I'll show you, and I'll do a quick walk around of the coop and show you a couple things, point out some details and stuff. But the roost, everybody talks about, everybody online, if you Google or YouTube stuff, some people swear by a large dowel rod, some people swear by 2x4s, but with the 2x4s, some people love them straight up, some people love them flat. Some people say the chickens love them a certain way, and I'm sure they do. So what I did was right down the middle of the road and just used the 2x3 on its flat side. So we'll see how they like that. Certainly easy to change if they don't, but I guess you gotta start somewhere, right? The run, I decided to use sand, and the sand was unique. If you read a lot about the people using sand, there's a lot of mention of the washed concrete sand, which I agree with. Some people don't. The tougher part is if you don't want to get a bunch of tons of sand dropped and you just want to pick up bags of sand. Finding bag sand comments online are tough because there's only a handful of bagged sand to choose from, and those are just the big box stores. What I will tell you is that push comes to shove, most people will tell you all-purpose sand because it's a coarse wash sand, and it says it right on the back, or right on the bag. As far as I'm concerned, if you look at any of the all-purpose sands that are in bags in the big box stores or the home improvement stores, I don't find that to be coarse sand. It's almost as fine as the play sand. So what I did was, it was a little harder to find information, but they sell tubes. Everybody sells tube sand too, which is the elongated bags that are like 60 or 80 pounds that you would typically use in the bed of your truck or in your car to put over your wheel wells for a little bit of weight during the wintertime or in the snow. If you cut one of those, bags are meant to actually stay together so that it doesn't break apart in your car. But if you actually bust one of those bags open, that is washed river sand. And that is a coarse sand, and I like that sand a lot. So it's $1 or so more expensive, a bag. So what I did was I mixed a bag of all-purpose and a bag of tube sand together, and it kind of gave me what I would consider a perfect mix for the run. I think I'm down the road going to use the sand in the coop itself too, but I think for now we decided to just go with pine shavings. It was super inexpensive, only costs half a compressed bag, or it's only half a compressed bag that goes in the coop that takes up the nesting boxes and the coop. Super easy to clean too. There is a poop board down in there, so it should make it that much easier. So use the pine shavings for now, but I think when we transport the coop up to the homestead, we'll probably wind up putting sand in the coop too. At that point, I would imagine the chickens will even be a little more used to running around and scratching in the sand in the run. So, and I think it would probably make it just as easy to clean up in the coop as well. But for right now, sand in the run, a mix of the tube and all-purpose. There's like 1-to-1 bag basically. And to be honest, if I hadn't mixed the all-purpose, I probably just would have gone straight with the tube sand. Like I said, a little harder to find info on that, especially if you look it up online. It's just going to list it as, people's reviews are going to just say, hey, I put it in my car, it weighed it down, it worked out great, which is pretty much its purpose. If you look at the bag itself, or if you read a little bit, if you go to Quikrete itself, or if you talk to somebody over there, they'll tell you that it is a river-based sand, and it's much coarser, and I like it. And if you look at pictures online of Backyard Chickens or any of the websites where people are holding sand that'll say, hey, don't use this sand, use this sand. And if you look at them, everything that says don't use it is definitely, to me, it looks like the all-purpose of their playground sand. Whether or not it's washed, I'm sure a different story. That way the sand drains a little bit better and sinks in water. But the coarse sand from the tube sand seemed to be a little bit better, and I'm stoked that I decided to grab those bags and mix them with the all-purpose. It turned out a lot better. I used some leftover vinyl material that I had laying around from, again, one of the Habitat stores, and just put that on the bottom of the coop tray that slides out. I also wrapped the poop board with it as well to make it a little easier to clean, and then use a piece behind me on the nesting boxes to just kind of keep a little bit of water out as well. I think one of the most interesting things that I found throughout this entire build, especially while editing the video, is that I'm going bald on the top of my head. Tough to see in a video, but I guess it happens. Well, I appreciate you guys checking in. I appreciate you watching the video. I know it's a little long, but it was tough for me to want to cut it into 2 parts. It just seemed like it seamlessly went through, and I just decided to let it go. Certainly, if you watch to the very end, I appreciate it very much. And if it's a video like I've done in the past before that you go to reference down the road when maybe you're building your coop, or a question that you might have while building your coop, you certainly can fast forward to the spot that you need to get to, and at least it's all in just one video. If this is your first time stopping by the ShabinLife channel, first of all, I appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook. But ultimately, we are 1/4 acre by week, and we are 18 acres up north by weekend, slowly transforming that 18 acres into our future homestead to live a more simple and self-sufficient lifestyle. So please join us on our journey as we continue to do that. And again, if this is your first time stopping by, thanks so much. Thanks for checking out the video. And now I'll give you a quick tour to take you out. We'll catch you on the next one. Yeah, show you the inside of the coop. The nice easy wood latch. Door opens nice and easy. This is the inside. Get a good shot. So again, we went with the pine shavings on the inside. That may turn out to be sand down the road. We'll see how everything works out. But for right now, super inexpensive. Put the poop board in there, make it nice and easy to clean, so it shouldn't be too bad. But they've got a decent amount of room in here, and I think it turned out really nice. Also have the clean out. So it's just the door that pops down, and then you've got the 2 handles there, and you can just basically pull the tray out and do kind of an all-around cleaning. There's the roost, again 2x3 on the flat side, right down the middle. So we'll see how that works out. If they don't like it, we can always change it, but I think it'll be okay. Door to the run. I did notice something that I didn't do in the videos was we did put some ventilation in there, some 4-inch holes, and some, I think, 2.5 inch, with some hardware cloth on the inside. I kind of placed them so that I didn't really have to put doors or closures on them for, water. Everything seems to be pretty well covered when it comes to the water side of things. I have a feeling we'll probably need to add a little bit more ventilation, but I figured I'd start out with just a few, one on this side, one on the other side, and then the 4 going across. And then I think I'm going to do them across the back too, but I want to hang the gutter in order to do rain collection first and then drill out the ventilation holes. That way I don't put the holes in a spot that I don't like them once the actual gutter gets on. At the nesting boxes on the side here, I just have the clips holding it down, the vinyl down, because when I put it on it was curling up originally. But there's the nesting boxes. It'll be nice when I'm showing you a video of me opening up with some eggs in there, but I think they turned out really nice. I think the chickens will be comfy. And then just a nice easy hook latch on there. It's the back of the coop. Again, you can see the hardware cloth turned out really nice, flush all the way around the run and the coop to staple the hardware cloth to, which made it nice and easy, not having to, block, put anything on there to bump it out a little bit in order to have something to staple to. It turned out nice. And here's the run. Door to the coop, and then the rope goes up and through, and then you can just pull it from the outside to open up the chicken run door.
That's it. It's the coop. Appreciate you guys watching.